kitchen, pour myself a cup of ambition, yawn and stretch and try to come alive.
Welcome back to our office hours, and you're live and I'm live, and everybody is live. And Dolly Parton, Dolly, if you are watching, I want to meet you someday. Thank you, Dolly. Anyway, we have to live without that wonderful music for at least a few minutes. A lot of news, but before we get to the news, I want to just urge you, this is a Facebook Live broadcast. You're live, I'm live. Let your friends know. Let other people know, because otherwise they'll have to watch it later. And there's something different about watching something that's later from watching something that's live, right? And also, if there's a little, you know, that little thing that you're supposed to push up here, that once you push it, something good happens, do push it. Oh, before we begin, I have got to show you something. I've got to show you something. It's important. It has to do with the announcement that I've been telling you about. So come with me. We're going to go over to my computer. Come this way. This is a big deal, and I am excited about it because we are today. Well, this is, you see this little thing that says launch the project? I am about to launch the Kickstarter project that incorporates you in the next documentary, the next sequel to Inequality for All. It's a documentary that really takes off from my last book, which is Saving Capitalism for the Many, Not the Few. And it looks at where we are right now, politically, economically, what's happening to America, where we need to go. It gets beyond the political fray right now. It looks at the future, but you are going to be part of it. You have an opportunity to be part of it, and I am now going to launch the project. Are you ready? Are you ready? All right. Okay, it says ready to launch. I am ready to launch. Okay, launch project now. Please accept our rules. Okay, I accept your rules. God. All right, I accept the rules. The project is now...
Oh, you have to click the bottom little box.
Launched. There's a bottom. Okay, launch project now.
No, you have to click the box.
That you have read
Click
the rules.
the box. Click the box.
Next to the green box.
Next to the green box. Oh, I've read the...
There you go.
You know, technologically, I am a little bit slow. I was born in the 20th century. All right, I have read these important rules, and I now launch the project. Is that right? Am I fine now? Your project is launched. All right, it's live on Kickstarter. Now listen, don't go to Kickstarter right now. I know you're tempted because, you know, you want to see the project. And I'm tempted too. I'm tempted to talk about the project, and it's going to be a fabulous film, and we need you. And if you help us, your name is going to be up there in the movie. And if you help us, you're going to be eligible to get some of my cartoon drawings, and your life will have changed for the better. It will be a wonderful life. The nation will be better. The world may even be improved slightly. I don't want to sound too grandiose about it, but wait until after the live broadcast, because there's a lot to talk about. I mean, the thing that I really want to talk about, the first thing I want to talk about is the Wisconsin primary yesterday. There is a lot to say about the Wisconsin primary. It's not all being talked about. Ted Cruz, see, if you sign up for Kickstarter, you could get this Ted Cruz. This is an original My Ted Cruz. And I say Cruz missile, because, you know what, the irony is the Republican establishment is acting as if it's such a great thing. Cruz won the Wisconsin primary and thereby displaced the Drumpf, the Drumpf, you know, Donald Trump. But, you know, it's not such a great thing because the Cruz is a right-wing fanatic. I mean, he not only is against gay marriage, he's against any kind of reproductive rights. He doesn't want women to have an abortion, even in the case of rape or incest. He doesn't even want contraception. I mean, what kind of a position is that? If you don't want abortion against rape or incest or any other kinds of instances, and you don't want even contraceptives being sold, what is that? What position is that? It's anti-sperm. That's what that is. This man is anti-sperm. So all you men out there, just think about this movement that Ted Cruz, this anti-sperm movement that he's launching. But he doesn't think that human beings have created global warming. I mean, this guy is out of the Neolithic Stone Age. And he's also hated by everybody who is anybody in politics. So it's not such an improvement over the Trump. It really is not a major improvement. In fact, Ted Cruz is just as dangerous as Donald Trump. In many ways, he's more dangerous. The Republican Party has produced two people. Well, here's where they stand. In order to get the Republican nomination, you see, you need 1,237 delegates in the Republican primaries. Trump has right now 742, and Cruz has 505. Cruz is way behind. There's nobody else. I mean, Kasich is falling by the wayside. So these are the choices Republicans are giving America, right? One person who is a complete demagogue, nutcase, a bigot, and another one who is a right-wing weirdo. That's what the Republican Party is doing for us. Now let's look at what has happened in Wisconsin as a result of, in terms of the Democratic primary. We have, in the Democratic primary, you've got a total of 2,383 delegates at stake. We're talking about pledged delegates. And Hillary Rodham Clinton has 1,279 of them. But Bernie Sanders is not that far behind. He now has 1,027. I mean, he's closing in. He's won 7 of the last 8 contests. This is a huge deal. Bernie Sanders, his political revolution is happening. It is happening right now. And the other thing about Wisconsin is the people who are young people. Now, when we talk about young people, normally people talk about voters who are under 30. Well, Bernie Sanders in Wisconsin he won the under 30 vote by 60%, by 60 points over Hillary Clinton with the under 30s. But there are also young people who, at my age, we call them young. They're 30 to 44. Those people voted for Bernie Sanders 2-1 in the Wisconsin primary. In other words, anybody who is even middle-aged young is voting for Bernie Sanders. This is a huge movement that is sweeping the country, and it is not. I've said this before, I want to say it again. It's not just or even primarily about Bernie Sanders. It is a movement to reclaim our democracy and reclaim our economy for average people, for working people, for the poor, and to wrest it away from the moneyed interests who have now dominated our economy and our democracy. The establishment press does not like Bernie Sanders. You know that. He had an interview with the New York Daily News. And the interview, I thought was a pretty good interview, and we got to a point in the interview where he was talking about busting up the big banks. And the interviewers from the editorial board of the New York Daily News, as you may know, they said, can the Fed bust up the big banks? And Bernie Sanders said, I don't know, which is an honest answer. When was the last time you heard a politician say, I don't know? But Bernie Sanders did give the right answer, which is the president has no control of the Fed. The president does have the authority under the Dodd-Frank Act, under Section 121 of the Dodd-Frank Act, to break up the big banks. So that's what Bernie Sanders said. But what the media did is to take what he said about, I don't know about the Fed's capacity to break up the big banks, which is totally irrelevant to what the president can do. And they blew that completely out of proportion. Here is what Vanity Fair's headline was, Bernie Sanders admits he isn't sure how to break up the big banks. He didn't say he didn't know how to he knew how to break up the big banks under Dodd-Frank. Here's the Washington Post. This New York Daily News interview was pretty close to a disaster for Bernie Sanders. Oh, please. Do you follow me? It was just the opposite. He gave exactly the right answer. Oh, here's the Atlantic. How much does Bernie Sanders know about policy? You know, this kind of media irresponsibility is dangerous to a democracy. The Clinton campaign even said in a fundraising email, and I'm going to quote, on his signature issue of breaking up the big banks, he's unable to answer basic questions about how he'd go about doing it, and even seems uncertain about whether a president does or doesn't already have that authority under existing law. Well, let me make it very, very clear. The president does have the authority under existing law. That's the Dodd-Frank Act, Section 121. That is exactly what Bernie Sanders said. And what is this storm, this tempest in a teapot being created by the Democratic establishment? Just shows you how scared they are of Bernie Sanders. New law school. I don't know if you've been following it. Their new law school, George Mason University, is establishing a new law school in honor of and in the name of Antonin Justice, the late Antonin Scalia. It's going to be known as the Antonin Scalia School of Law, which I think is an appropriate and a very, very thoughtful title. Okay, worst of the week. We come to our worst of the week segment. What is the worst of the week? There are so many these weeks. It is hard to decide the worst outrage of the week, but we came up with one, and that is, again, media. I don't know. I never expected to be talking about the media, especially the establishment liberal democratic media, but the New York Times today, it did it. It did it. It got the worst of the week. Here was what the New York Times said. All right. In the same article today, the Times says Senator Cruz soundly defeated Donald Trump. And then later on in the same articles, it says Bernie Sanders defeated Hillary Clinton in a much closer contest. Now, here's the thing. Cruz defeated Trump. The spread was 13.2 points. Bernie Sanders defeated Hillary Clinton. The spread was 13.4 points. Do you get it? In other words, Bernie Sanders defeated Hillary Clinton by a larger margin than Ted Cruz defeated Donald Trump. And yet the Times says soundly defeated with regard to Cruz and Trump, and then here says much closer contest. New York Times, will you please report the news? The news? All right, we now turn to your questions, and question number one is eventually coming my way. All right, it says, and this is from Anne-Marie Downs, I can't wait to hear what part two has to tell us. I'll be watching and listening intently. I love your posts, and you seem to be a genuinely great, cool, smart, as a whip and funny guy. I hope one day to meet you. Dinner next time you're in... please, Anne-Marie. You're talking about part two. You're talking about the sequel that I was announcing, that I launched, right? The Kickstarter. Yes, well, it's going to be great. It's going to be about how, it's going to take off. Remember, in Inequality for All, we set up the problem and kind of why it is that the raging inequality we now have is bad for our democracy, bad for our economy, but we didn't go to the next step, which is what to do about it. And this next documentary really talks about what we can do politically and should do politically about it. Well, I don't want to get ahead of it. I'm just going to take the next, because it's going to be big. Big. All right, Chris Zeliker, did he just say you can score one of his drawings? Did he just say? Did I? Yeah, you can. You can have one of my drawings, but you have to pay for it. I mean, not pay for it. You've got to, be a Kickstarter. You've got to be part of our Kickstarter team. And they are my drawings. People sometimes ask me. Last night, I was in Santa Cruz, California, at the University of California, Santa Cruz, and somebody said, do you do your drawings? Of course I do my drawings. And they're not, they're just cartoons. Sarah Bailey, what was that weird machine you were using to play music? Can we talk about the issues, please? Please, Sarah? It's not a weird machine. This machine, this is what is known, Sarah, it may be before your time. This is called a tape recorder. This is a tape deck. Do you remember anything like this? We used to have these. It's pretty hefty, and these were the good old days. This would be pre-Trump. All right. Adam Albrecht, Mr. Reich, should we be trying to save capitalism? Why not replace it altogether with a more cooperative model? Adam, capitalism comes in a variety of forms. I mean, the basic rule of capitalism is private property and voluntary exchange through contract of goods and services. And you see that in China. You see that in Norway and Sweden. You see that everywhere around the world. I mean, Russia, in every place, except maybe North Korea, has those two primary features. The question is, what do you do with them beyond that? You have a system that is working for everybody, such as the kind of system we were moving toward between 1946 and 1980 in this country? Or do you have a system like we now have in this country and some other countries are moving toward, in which almost all the income and wealth moves to the top and the political power moves with it? Political power always moves with income and wealth. That's the question. In other words, it's not capitalism versus non-capitalism, it's the kind of capitalism we have. It's not free market versus government, it's whether you have government rules that are helpful to everybody and are created by a democracy, or whether you have government rules of the market that are created by big corporations and Wall Street and billionaires. It's not big government versus small government, it's whether you have a government that's working for the people or a government that's working for the people who are the moneyed interests. All right, next question. Margaret Kinnaman, what is your take on the Panama Papers? And Margaret, you're talking about the leaked documents having to do with all of the individuals, wealthy individuals, who are using this particular device, this particular bank, this particular law firm, to hide their money offshore so that they don't get taxed. And what do I think about it? I think it's the tip of the iceberg. In fact, what we have learned in this country we have, the president calls every day at this time, but somebody told him that I was doing this with you. What we have in this country right now is a class of people, and we don't know how large it is, but we know that many people do hide their income abroad in what are known as tax shelters. There are big banks like Credit Suisse that were indicted and made criminal by the U.S. Department of Justice a couple of years ago for helping their clients hide their money abroad in tax shelters and thereby not pay taxes due. And the interesting thing about that particular case and that particular criminal settlement was that the Justice Department did not ask Credit Suisse to turn over their list of their clients that had been putting their money abroad against the law. Now, why did the Justice Department didn't do that is another question for another day. I have my suspicions. All right, David Higgins, if the DNC, Democratic National Committee, threatens governors and senators by withholding campaign funds unless they endorse Clinton, aren't they just like the mafia? David, accusing the DNC, Democratic National Committee, of being just like the mafia? Well, let's put it this way. If the DNC is actually using extortion, is saying, we are not going to give you campaign funds that we have solicited from Democrats all over the country unless you endorse Hillary Clinton, I would say that that is not what a Democratic National Committee ought to be doing, that believes in democracy. I hope they're not doing it. Do you think they are, David? Are they doing that? Well, they should stop. Debbie Wasserman Schultz, I know you listen to everything that I say and write, and I know you're watching right now. You're head of the DNC. Will you stop that? Stop intimidating potential candidates? Stop telling them that they have to support Hillary Clinton? I mean, Hillary Clinton is a perfectly fine person. I've known her for many years. I've known her since she was 19 years old. She'd make a fine president of the system we now have. But Bernie Sanders would make a president that is designed perfect for getting the system we need. Debbie? Do you get that? Okay, Sven Dreyer. Did I pronounce your name right? Sven? To what degree is what we are experiencing in the U.S. economy a product of post-industrialization? Sven? Post-industrialization. We've been in post-industrialization for a very long time. I mean, the industrial center of the United States is no longer the industrial center. We don't have big factories that employ huge numbers of people on assembly lines. The core of the American economy is now a service economy. That doesn't mean it has to be low wage. It can be a high-wage service economy, and it is a high-wage service economy for some people, but most Americans are not in the high-wage service economy. They're in the low-wage, retail, restaurant, hotel, hospital, surface transportation, child care, elder care. These people are getting paid almost nothing. We've got to raise the minimum wage, we've got to expand the earned income tax credit, and we've got to think seriously about a guaranteed minimum income. We haven't really talked about that. Don't get scared. I'm just saying we've got to think seriously about that. To what degree is all of this avoidable? Well, Sven, you've got to read my book. Okay, next question. Carlos Palmer, what about the superdelegate problem? Please talk about what we do. Look, many people don't remember. In 2008, there was a superdelegate issue. And Hillary Clinton was gathering up a lot of the superdelegates. And what happened to those superdelegates? She ended up not having many superdelegates. Why? Because Barack Obama was winning so many contests, so many primaries and caucuses, that the superdelegates felt constrained. They had to go with the winner. And that same thing is going to happen now. Democratic insiders who are superdelegates simply because they are Democratic insiders, those Democratic insiders are invariably going to go with the winner, because if they don't, they're not going to be reelected if they're members of Congress or they're senators or they're governors. They're going to come under huge political pressure. All right, next question from Tori Howarth. My family raves about flat tax. Your family really raves about the flat tax? And I keep telling them it wouldn't work, as it would raise taxes on the poor and lower them on the rich. They insist it would stop billionaires from getting tax breaks. Help me with this argument. Tori, you're absolutely right. And all you need to do is to let's just look on a piece of paper. Let's just take a piece of paper. Take any piece of paper. And you can see right now we have a moderately progressive tax system. That means that if you are earning more money, you're paying more taxes. This is somebody who is earning a lot of money, and this person is not paying very many. He's paying a lot of taxes, or at least he's paying at a higher tax rate. Now, if you have a flat tax, that means that the people up here, their taxes go down. Do you see that? And people down here, because they have to make up the taxes that are lost, their taxes go up. So the poor pay more and the rich pay less. And if you think that the billionaires up here are going to start paying more, you are out of your minds. They're already using every tax avoidance scheme they can possibly get. If they have less tax to pay, they're going to pay even less tax. Was that helpful? All right. Chris, sorry, I'm all in favor of a higher minimum wage. What do you think of a maximum wage in relation to the lowest paid employee? Well, it's a good idea, Chris. One way of doing that, and the California legislature has considered it, I hope they consider it again, and they actually pass it, is a tax on corporations that is proportional to the gap between the CEO pay and the top executive pay and the average pay of average workers in that company, including its subcontractors. If that gap is huge, the corporation pays a very high tax. If the gap is very low, if it's a much more equitable corporation, the corporation pays a much lower tax. That strikes me as a good way of dealing with what you would like to see. Okay, we have just time for a little bit, maybe one more question. Sam Brown, what is the Kickstarter website? I thought you'd never ask. The Kickstarter website is www.savingcapitalism.com. savingcap.com/Kickstarter. So if you want to be part of this, if you want to be part of the movement, now this is not, the movement, this is not the political revolution, but it's a small part of the political revolution. If you want to be part of this part of the political revolution in terms of understanding what's happening, if you liked Inequality for All, if you want to be eligible for my drawings, and if you want your name up there at the end of the film, and there are all kinds of Kickstarter prizes, please, I hate to make this into a telethon, but please do join us. savingcap.com/Kickstarter. And it was a pleasure to join you all, and I also want to thank Zoe Umlaut Beck and Yael Bridge, who are doing such a wonderful job, and I will see you next week, next Thursday. You see, we had to do this Wednesday, kind of a special because we were launching Kickstarter today. And if you know Dolly Parton, would you do me a favor? Tell her that I would just like to meet her. I mean, I love her country western music. See you next week.